Southern California is long regarded as America's Golden State. But it is also the favored hunting ground for the depraved and sadistic.
There's not a lot of evidence. There's no clothing or any of her personal belongings left behind.
But little do authorities know, they are about to be face to face with one of America's deadliest serial killers, who would go on a killing rampage for over 10 years before they even know he exists. On a warm night in Mission Viejo, California, January 18th, 1986, a serial killer is hunting. 23-year-old Saddleback College communications student Robin Branley is about to become his first victim. He veers off the interstate for the college. Then he idles around the dimly lit parking lot, confident his chances are high in finding some young, unsuspecting woman on campus.
Robin has just finished volunteering for a piano recital at a performing arts center. Unfortunately, she's a young woman in the wrong place at the wrong time.
He lurks in the shadows, stalking her before grabbing her from behind. For the briefest of moments, he holds her tight, quickly glancing to make sure no witnesses are around. Robin is terrified, pulling at his hand, trying to scream for help.
Soon after she gave up her purse, he began to stab her multiple times.
He keeps stabbing even after she's down. He keeps at it, in fact, until a car moving through the parking lot scares him off.
Her body is discovered moments after the attack by a college professor.
An individual who had been given a ride to her car came upon the scene and immediately notified the authorities, called 911.
Orange County homicide detectives arrive on the scene to one of the most gruesome killings they have ever encountered in Mission Viejo.
Robin was stabbed 41 times. She was laying in a pool of her own blood next to her car. Next to her body was her open purse. Nothing was taken.
The professor is asked to ID the body. She can barely say her name, she's so upset. Robin was her student.
They had very little, if anything, to go on. They had no solid leads. They could not even determine a motive. There was no evidence a robbery had taken place. The police had to assume that her killer must have known her. There must have been some personal connection, some personal reason for this horrific crime.
Typically, detectives would start with the people closest to the victim, boyfriends, family, close acquaintances. Then they would move further out to classmates or co-workers, people a little further away in terms of a relationship.
After months of investigation, the case drags on.
It was clearly a mysterious, horrific crime that left the police very little to go on. And it shocked the conscience of the entire community.
It creates an intense amount of anxiety, especially when homicide detectives sit in on Robin's classes, gauging possible suspects.
But true suspects never really materialize here. They can't find anybody that would, really want to hurt her. She was outgoing, pretty, very intelligent. She was full of life, and everyone loved her.
By all reports, Robin was a wonderful, delightful, intelligent, funny young lady, responsible young adult, had several friends, was destined for great things. And the person that killed her prevented all of those great things that Robin was destined for.
It was a joy to be with. She was very happy. She liked to make people laugh. She was interested in writing, but Saddleback has a really good communications department. She was the disc jockey and did the news and public service announcements, and she was good at it, and she liked it. We were blessed to have this girl in our lives for 23 years.
Robin's murder whips into a sensationalized media storm, criticizing homicide investigators' inability to produce a prime suspect.
They could find no offender. They had no solid leads to go on.
We've been quite a bit of concern around Mission Viejo with the case dragging on for so many months.
You really have to be aware of the fact that surveillance cameras, especially on college campuses, weren't what they are today. And you combine that with the fact that there were no witnesses and no physical evidence, made it really difficult to nail down a suspect.
One can only imagine how traumatic this is for Robin's family.
Initially, when the phone would ring in the beginning, like the first year or two, I would think, maybe that's the sheriff. They're going to tell us that they've made an arrest. And then after the years went on, it just like, I'd really pretty much given up hope.
The FBI puts their skilled profilers on the case because you'd want to ensure, as an investigator, that there isn't already somebody in the federal system worth looking at.
But FBI profilers find no matches to active killers in their database. The simple truth is, the investigation is going cold, quickly.
And no detective ever wants to face a grieving family without being able to provide them some sort of closure, some information as to what happened to their loved one. You know, for a detective, really, that means failure. It's beginning to look like this mysterious, faceless killer is going to get away with it.
With all investigative avenues exhausted, Robin Branley's murder ends up in Orange County Homicides cold case files. But what authorities do not know is that Robin is just the beginning. 2,000 miles away, and 10 years later, in the district of Wolf Lake, south of Chicago proper, he strikes again.
Mid-April of 1996, a person during the morning hours, a nature walker of sorts, was walking near Wolf Lake, near the shoreline, when he discovered a nude body of a female floating face down. He immediately called 911, and both police from Hammond, Indiana, as well as the Chicago police arrived. It was discovered that the body was on the Illinois side of the lake, so the Chicago police had jurisdiction over this matter.
There's not a lot of evidence. There's no clothing or any of her personal belongings left behind.
Wolf Lake is a very, very remote, secluded lake between the Illinois-Indiana border, of an industrial area. Nobody lived nearby it. Nobody worked near it, certainly at night. It was a perfect place to be alone with somebody.
Wolf Lake is a small lake just between Chicago and Hammond. It's sort of famous back in the days of Capone for having bodies dumped there. But since that time, it's become more of a natural reserve with recreational sport and kind of a day fishing spot.
Detectives arrive on the scene.
She had been shot twice. Her naked body had been removed by fire department personnel and transported to the Cook County Medical Examiner's office for an autopsy.
With no way to identify the young woman, detectives hope the autopsy will shed some light.
They found no identification anywhere near her body, no clothes. It was a mystery at that point, and she was considered a Jane Doe.
With Jane Does, dental records and fingerprints are typically run through police files.
They had to wait for the body to dry out before they could take her fingerprints. They did discover that she had a tattoo of a heart on her body.
A fingerprint match reveals the victim is 24-year-old Laura Ulacki of Hammond, Indiana.
Laura had a previous arrest for prostitution in 1995, so her fingerprints came up in the system.
There had been 2 gunshot wounds, one in Laura's face and another behind her shoulder. There were bullets lodged in her body. Those bullets were recovered by the medical examiner and sent to the Illinois State Police Crime Lab, where they were found to be .38 caliber bullets.
Police begin to look into Laura's life for possible clues that might help identify her killer.
Laura came from a big family. She had a lot of friends.
Around the time of her death, she was beginning to frequent some bars and clubs in Hammond. She was beginning to use drugs. and getting involved with the wrong people.
Whether she'd been paid for sex by her killer is a possibility, which means there's a high probability she met him in the clubs she frequented in and around Hammond. And her murder turns into another cold case, leaving Chicago detectives stumped.
A young student's savage murder on campus stuns the community of Mission Viejo and sends panic throughout the college. But the case goes cold when another girl turns up dead in a suburban lake near Chicago 10 years later. Investigators have no idea they're dealing with a serial killer, a killer who is but a ghost. July 14th, 1996. The body of another young woman is found in Livingston County, south of Chicago.
While still investigating Lori Ulacki's murder with no real breakthroughs, another girl is found in the Vermilion River a couple hours south of Wolf Lake.
She had been shot several times. She had been stabbed. And like Laura's body, it was nude in a body of water with no identification. Fishermen had come to the Vermilion River, discovered her body, and immediately called the police. Her body was taken to the medical examiner there in Livingston County.
Medical examiners find that she had been handcuffed and duct tape had been placed over her mouth.
They did discover that she had a tattoo of CC on her body.
She's identified as 21-year-old Cassandra Coram.
She was a young lady in the Hammond, Indiana area. Cassandra Coram's family had sent out a flyer looking for her. They had reported her missing, and they were obviously very concerned about her. And it wasn't until this tattoo was identified and pictures of Cassie was shown to her family, and they identified her.
Considering that Cassandra is also from Hammond, it suggests whoever killed her is hunting in the same place, but disposing of victims somewhere else.
During the autopsy, the medical examiner had revealed that Cassie had been shot 3 times. One of the bullets was lodged in her body. That bullet was also sent to the Illinois State Police Crime Lab, where it was found to also be a .38 caliber bullet.
A month later, a third victim ends up in Wolf Lake, in what is to be known as the Wolf Lake murders. August 2nd, 1996. 22-year-old Lynn Huber, a known prostitute from Chicago, is also murdered.
Almost in the identical location where Laura had been dumped months earlier, and he dumped Lynn Huber's body in Wolf Lake. Lynn's body is removed from the water and taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy.
Lynn was shot not once, but twice. The first shot kills her, so he then shot her again after she was dead. And there were a lot of stab wounds, predominantly in the back, that again were done after she was dead. This means that not only is he getting bolder, he's also getting more aggressive post-mortem.
Yet they have no eyewitnesses, no gun or knife, no real forensic evidence to find this guy.
However, when Lynn Huber's body was examined at the Cook County Medical Examiner's office, the medical examiner found a bullet lodged in her body that also was a .38 caliber bullet. All of those bullets were examined by the Illinois State Police Crime Lab, and it was determined that all of the women were killed by the same gun, a .38 caliber pistol.
So by early August of 1996, we have 2 police departments from 2 jurisdictions dealing with the bodies of 3 women who were found nude in bodies of water in secluded areas. All of these victims have been shot by the same gun, so police now believe they're dealing with a serial killer.
April 1st, 1997. Officers respond to a disturbance call between a known prostitute and her client at a Hammond hotel.
They had gone on, dates in the past. All of those dates ended up at Wolf Lake, where there would be sex in exchange for money.
She tells police that they had been arguing about money.
This lady had stolen some checks from a checkbook he had in his glove compartment. This infuriated him. They got into an argument during which he was chasing her around the truck with a knife, trying to kill her. The police were called, but by then he left the scene.
She starts telling the police he wants to drive out to Wolf Lake, take me in the back of his pickup truck, handcuff me, and have sex.
She did not want to do that. In fact, she didn't even want to go to Wolf Lake anymore.
What she was saying sounded very similar to the MO of the Wolf Lake killer. The officer even tells her she shouldn't be doing that because they've had women killed up in the Wolf Lake area. While he's listening to her, he recognizes the man's name from a previous arrest.
Following the motel incident, the officer reviews his prior firearm violation arrest of a South Chicago mall security guard named Andrew Urdialis, who tells him he's a former Marine.
He's so sure of his hunch that he prepares a supplemental report suggesting that this former Marine is a prime suspect in the Wolf Lake killings.
November of 1996, he was working on patrol in Hammond, Indiana, when he and other officers came upon a crack house. Urdialis and his pickup truck and an unknown female were sitting in the truck out in front of this crack house. They approached the vehicle. They were interviewing Urdialis and this young lady, during which a search of the vehicle revealed a .38 caliber pistol. Urdialis told the Hammond police officers he was a security guard. He used the pistol for work.
Urdialis was not licensed to carry a gun in the state of Indiana, so officers charged him with a misdemeanor and they confiscated the weapon. A judge later ordered that the gun be destroyed.
Chicago district detectives have no clue a link exists between 3 recent murders of local prostitutes and a college student murdered 10 years prior in California. The 3 Chicago area murders have all been committed using the same gun, a .38 revolver. Hammond, Indiana police have just linked a .38 revolver in their custody to a former mall security guard named Andrew Urdialis.
Now, the Hammond, Indiana Police Department communicated all of this information to the Chicago Police Department. The Chicago police detectives raced to Hammond, Indiana as soon as they could and got out of inventory Andrew Urdialis' pistol that was destined to be destroyed. Thank God it hadn't been destroyed by mid-April of 1997, when that gun was analyzed with all of the bullets from Lori Olaki's body, Cassandra Corum's body, and Lynn Huber's body. And scientists from the Illinois State Police were able to determine that that gun, to the exclusion of every gun in the world, was the gun that was used in shooting all of those bullets and all of those women. It was Andrew Urdialis' gun.
Detectives arrest him at his parents' South Chicago home.
He was wearing his security guard uniform, he had a duty belt on, he had a badge, and he willingly accompanied the detectives to the police station for an interview. He was glad to cooperate. He felt some type of a kinship with, real law enforcement officials.
Detectives interview Andrew Urdialis.
So they asked him where he got the gun from. He tells them he bought it for $300 5 months ago in Calumet City. He's almost matter-of-fact about it.
And they asked him, did you ever let anybody use this gun besides yourself? He goes, no, absolutely not. The detectives then told Urdialis that gun was used to kill the 3 women, the pictures of whom was laying out in front of him. He looked at the detectives, he smiled, he stood up and he said, well, I guess I'm not going to work today. He took off his duty belt, he took off his security guard badge, and then he proceeded to tell the detectives how he killed Lori Alaki, Cassandra Coram, and Lynn Huber.
Having been in homicide for so long, I can tell you it's unusual to have a suspect just give it up like that. The detectives must have been surprised that he was just ready to confess.
April 22nd, 1997. Andrew Urdialis is arrested for the murders of Laura Ulaki and Lynn Huber.
Today we're here to announce the arrest of Andrew Urdialis. He's been arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. And those murders are Laura Ulaki and Lynn Huber. A break came in this case as a result of a report that was submitted by a Hammond police officer, and his name is Warren Fryer, and certain information was in that report that brought us into arresting Mr. Urdialis.
Urdialis shocks Cook County detectives when he tells them California authorities might also be interested to hear what he has to tell them. Cook County Homicide invites California's detective investigating the Robin Brandley case to Chicago's Area 2 headquarters.
We received a call from the Chicago Police Department that indicated they had arrested a serial murder suspect involved in several murders in their city, and indicated that they had strong suspicions that this could be the suspect involved in the killing of Robin Brandley.
Urdialis tells investigators about how he came to be in California at the time of Robin's murder.
From 1984 to 1991, he was a communications officer in the Marines. He was stationed at Camp Pendleton just north of San Diego. He wasn't too popular in the Marines. In fact, he was given the nickname Corporal Urinalysis. It's also said that he had an odd twitch that makes it impossible for him to rise in the ranks. He was demoted instead.
During his career, he was deployed in Operation Desert Storm. He was a radio operator.
Eventually, in his police interview, he gets around to the night he killed Robin Brandley. According to his confession, he got into an argument with some of his subordinates at Camp Pendleton, which set him off. Basically, his rage sent him speeding down Interstate 5 through San Clemente into the Saddleback campus. It's later in the evening by the time he gets there, but he notices a few cars still in the parking lot.
Can you describe the parking lot?
Dark. Nothing else. This is just dark parking lot.
He didn't remember her name, but he remembered how she was dressed, how he snuck on the campus that night.
Some woman thought he was walking out of the building, walking towards her car.
Can you describe this woman that was walking towards the car?
She was white.
He basically took a position in the shadows and waited. Robin Brandley was just a random female. It could have been anybody as far as he was concerned.
I said I wanted it first, and it's like, just, what happens then?
Well, what happens then?
And I just plunged into her several times.
Into where?
Her back.
From the beginning of his confession, you can hear how he weaves a disconnect into his narrative. It's almost like even though he's confessing, he's disassociating himself from any real responsibility. This is textbook sociopathic behavior. And so as anger builds to rage one night, he drives up the I-5 and murders an innocent girl. But he realizes he has to be more careful if he doesn't want to get caught. He'd have to prepare better and select victims that wouldn't cause the same mass media hysteria that Robin's murder created. So he decides to focus on prostitutes, runaways, people more difficult to trace. He rents a storage locker in San Diego to better organize and hide his weapons. He starts using a gun and stabs his victims after the fact. There's less chance of blood spatter once the heart has stopped beating, and therefore less chance of being caught. And hunts in cities further from Camp Pendleton. Somewhere deeper in the California desert, somewhere less busy than a college campus.
He finds his second victim in the Coachella Valley in Cathedral City, just south of Palm Springs.
There's no shortage of prostitutes and runaway girls in Cathedral City. It's a very transient area. The second victim is Julie McGee, a known prostitute around town.
I had a 45 at the time, so I had the 45 on my seat and I picked it up. I think I walked towards the driver's side and I told her to get out. She walked towards the desert and the gun was pointed at her and it went off.
How many times do you think you shot her?
She was shot just once.
But Julie, like Robin Branley before her, is destined to become another California cold case. It's only a few months later he strikes again in San Diego. Mary Ann Wells is a single mother, a mature student, and she moonlights as a sex trade worker.
Mary Ann Wells was left in an alley in an industrial area of San Diego, California.
He's getting more confident, but along with this arrogance, his urge is now impossible to resist. He's going to keep killing until he gets stopped.
In Palm Springs, Urdiales finds his fourth and youngest victim, 18-year-old Tammy Irwin.
Tammy Irwin was left in the desert in the Palm Springs, California area.
So I remember her name was Tammy. We got in a car.
Did you have your .45 with you when you were outside the truck?
In my hand. The gun was pointed at her.
Okay.
And it exploded. I got in my truck and I looked and I noticed it was standing. Then the next thing I know, the gun was just pointing at her again. And it fired 2 more times.
The bodies of Julie McGee, Mary Ann Wells, and Tammy Irwin were found to have 45 caliber bullets in them. Those bullets were determined by authorities in California to be fired by the same gun. When Mary Ann Wells' body was discovered by San Diego police, there was a condom near her body. DNA samples were obtained from him, and it was discovered that was the DNA of Andrew Urdiales. So you had physical evidence that linked Urdiales to the Mary Ann Wells' murder, coupled with the ballistic evidence that linked her murder to Julie McGee and Tammy Irwin, coupled with his detailed confessions to killing all 3 of those women. And by the end of April 1997, everybody knew that Andrew Urdiales was a serial killer, leaving victims in both Illinois and California.
He kills again on a return trip to California in March 1995. Her name was Denise Manny, a known prostitute in Cathedral City. Hers was by far one of the most gruesome crime scenes they found. She was mutilated, shot through the mouth, and left in the desert.
He talked about how he had killed Denise Maney with his second .45 caliber pistol. He left this pistol in a locker storage facility of sorts in the Palm Springs area, where he kept that pistol, a machete, rope, shovels, twine, things of that nature. He would keep this storage locker there in Palm Springs with all of these tools of his trade so that he wouldn't have to take them on a plane back to Chicago.
With each killing, he becomes more and more confident he can't be caught, until that one victim rattles his confidence. He confesses to detectives that one girl in California actually got away.
Serial killer Andrew Urdiales is arrested and taken to Chicago's famed Area 2 division, where he confesses to savagely murdering 8 women in California and Illinois over a 10-year rampage. But when he admits one girl in Palm Springs got away from him, detectives may have the witness they so desperately need.
During Urdiales' confession, investigators were careful to have him explain the killings and record it on tape, using details only the killer would know. However, they would still like to have their ace up their sleeve, for lack of a better term, before turning the case over to the district attorney's office. And that ace is the one victim who got away.
Her name is Jennifer Asbenson, and she's a certified nursing assistant working the graveyard shift in a handicapped children's facility when she accepts a ride from the absolute wrong guy.
Palm Springs, September 27th, 1992, 6 p.m.
One night, he is driving in Palm Springs when he saw Jennifer Asbenson, who was waiting at a bus stop, and unfortunately for her, she was late for work. He pulled up in his rent-a-car, asked if she needed a ride.
And I automatically said no, and all that ran through my mind is, I'm gonna lose my job. This is a nice guy. Why am I so afraid of everybody? And I just said, stop, wait, I'll do it.
So she got in the car, and they started driving, started talking. She introduced herself. Her name was Jennifer. So we're driving, we made a lot of small talk. Said something about being an actress, something like that.
He dropped her off at work, but before dropping her off, he asked for her phone number. She gave him a bogus phone number.
I tried to call her, but I couldn't get through for some reason. It was a bad number, and I was a little kind of upset about that.
And he realized she had lied to him, which, if you're Andrew Urdiales, he did not like it when women lied to him.
So I got in my car and I drove back toward that area, and I saw her.
Sure enough, she's getting off of work about 6 o'clock in the morning, and who's there? Andrew Urdiales in that car.
I said, hey, how you doing? Hey, she was there from last night. I asked if she wanted to get some breakfast. She got in the car.
He came back the next morning and he had gained my trust, and I trusted him. I got back in the car with him, and that's when he decided he was gonna kill me.
And what happened next was a day out of hell.
Then the next thing I knew, I just reached over and I grabbed her by the hair, and then she got scared, and I produced the gun. But she was pretty much submissive from that point forward, and I told her to turn around. I tied her hands behind her back.
He has her tied up. He is brandishing this machete, this gun. At one point, after bashing her head onto the dashboard, she is overcome by fear. She passes out, and he picks her up and he puts her in the trunk of this rental car.
And I walked towards the back of the car, and I opened the hood and I stuffed her in there. Then I just closed the trunk on her. And then I just got in the car and I just started driving off.
It's miraculous that she did not die after what she had endured up to this point. While he is driving with her in the trunk, she's able to release the latch of the trunk from the inside. He notices that, stops the car, tells her, close it. She does.
And then I tried to get it back going again, and I got stuck. This time it was so soft on the shoulder, I got stuck.
This gives her an opportunity to release that trunk latch again. She does. She escapes out of the trunk, half naked, injured, and she starts running down this dirt road of sorts.
She had her hands free at the time. She was still wearing her sweatshirt, and she ran screaming. And there were several cars nearby.
Lo and behold, there is a truck coming down the road with 2 Good Samaritans. They are able to rescue Jennifer. She's screaming, she's crying, and they wanted to chase after this guy. And she's like, no, he's got a gun.
So that was the last time I saw her. Unless somebody else picked her up and finished when I started, but I don't know.
Police are called, her mother is called, but by then, Urdiales has already returned his rent-a-car, and he's on a plane from Palm Springs back to Chicago.
It was very scary, yeah. Some points I kind of didn't want to get away because I didn't know I was going to be able to go in public anymore or do anything knowing that there's 6 people out there, but I just got to be strong now, and all I tell myself is that I fought for my life so I can live my life, and I'm not afraid anymore.
This was in September of 1992. It did not stop this man because in 1995 he returned to kill Denise Maney. And then, as we know, by the spring and summer of 1996, he's killing 3 more women, this time in the state of Illinois.
Miss Asbenson's testimony would be key to the prosecution's case. It's beginning to look like Andrew Urdiales is finally headed for the gas chamber.
But it takes 4 years before he even sees the inside of a courtroom.
Ballistics connects Chicago mall security and former Marine Andrew Urdiales to a string of violent, gruesome murders in Illinois and California. But a victim in California who survives his sadistic torture is the eyewitness that could send him to the gas chamber.
Today we're here to announce the arrest of Andrew Urdiales. He's been arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. And those murders are Laura Ulacki and Lynn Hubert.
Me and my partners were tasked with prosecuting Urdiales in Cook County, Illinois for the Chicago murders, specifically the murders of Lori Ulacki and Lynn Huber.
Following his arrest, Andrew Urdiales is held in a county correctional center for 4 years before he's tried in court.
Because it was a double murder, it was a death penalty case in Illinois, because at that time, Illinois had the death penalty.
Around the same time, coincidentally, the state of Illinois is caught up in a debate about abolishing the death penalty. The Urdiales case in particular becomes the center point of that argument, and the case is delayed for 4 years.
Andrew Urdiales' trial for the murders of Laura Ulacki and Lynn Huber begins on April 8, 2002.
The jury heard all of the evidence, the brutality of the murders of Laura, Lynn, and Cassandra, the physical evidence linking the defendant to all three of these crimes, the detailed confessions provided by Urdiales to not one but two different assistant state's attorneys.
The defense paint Urdiales as a victim, suffering from PTSD, OCD, bipolar, and Tourette's, which explains the odd twitch he had in the military. They add that he was clearly psychotic at the time of his offenses and suffering from delusions and hallucinations, even hearing voices and taking orders from the CIA.
One of the detectives testifies that Urdiales confessed that he was relieved that he had been caught because he was already getting the urge to kill again.
After 6 weeks, the jury had convicted Andrew Urdiales of the murders of Laura Ulacki and Lynn Huber and had decided that Andrew Urdiales should get the death penalty.
A little under a year later, the sitting Illinois governor blanket commutes 167 death row inmates, including Urdiales.
Naturally, the prosecution isn't going to give up their opportunity for a second death sentence. A year later in Livingston County, they indict him for Cassandra Corum's murder.
Right from the start, the trial takes on a bizarre twist, with Urdiales throwing a fit and having to be shackled while in court.
Livingston County prosecutors put on their case. It was a great case, just like Cook County's case. Physical evidence linking the defendant to Cassie's murder, detailed confession. The police down in Livingston County did a great job collecting pieces of duct tape from the interstate when Urdiales left the scene. The defense was an insanity defense presented by his public defenders. The jury soundly rejected that for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that there was a great deal of planning involved by Urdiales before the murders, during the execution of the murders, and then afterwards when he's covering up these crimes, all of which flies in the face of a true insanity defense.
So the prosecution brought in psychology experts. They testify that, unlike what the defense wants you to believe, Urdiales' actions stemmed from his explosive temper, not a mental illness.
Urdiales was proud of what he had done. He truly believed these women deserved to die.
May 10th, 2004. Andrew Urdiales is found guilty of murder for a second time and resentenced to death.
So what happened next is Urdiales is on Illinois death row. There was a commutation of Andrew Urdiales' sentence from death in 2 separate counties with all of this evidence to natural life in prison. And keep this in mind, inherent in the insanity defense is an admission by the defendant that he did it. He's just claiming that because of his mental illness, he's not responsible for his actions, all right? So this wasn't a case of a wrongful conviction or some other guy did it, not me. This clearly was overwhelming evidence that he killed these 3 Illinois women. Thank God the authorities in California decided to charge Urdiales for the 5 California murders, along with the attempt murder and kidnapping of Jennifer.
Orange County prosecutors extradite him for the California murders. It takes 7 years to get him back in court.
This took a long time, but now we're here, and this case is a great example of why we should have the deadline.
And this time, their key witness is none other than Jennifer Asbenson.
When I was in that car with him when he was torturing me, I actually thought about the jurors giving him the death penalty when I was in that car because I knew that was what he deserved.
This is somebody who killed these young women because he enjoyed it, because he got off on it, and there was absolutely, they were as senseless as they were brutal.
The California trial took place in 2018. The California jury, based on all of this overwhelming evidence, clearly did the right thing, found Urdiales guilty of all of these crimes.
Andrew Urdiales is found guilty and sentenced to death for the third time in California.
Obviously, all of the families of the victims, Jennifer, all of the friends of all of these people were extremely relieved. Finally, after so many years, they received justice.
Jennifer, to hear the verdict today, to hear the sentence recommended by the jury, what went through your head?
When I heard it, I just felt like all my insides collapsed. And like it was a huge relief. And I just felt like all the jurors were angels and they just answered the prayers that I had. And so now I just feel like I got my life back. Because there is justice. Even if it takes a long time, there's justice. And I just felt, it's like it ended all that. His story is over.
Unfortunately, they'll never be made whole again, but there is some closure, at least, provided to all of these family members of all of these victims that the person responsible for all of these crimes has been held responsible. So there has to have been relief for all of these people, and thank God that they finally got it. A prosecutor who gets involved in these cases and is deeply entrenched in all this evidence knows what the defendant is truly like. So obviously, my partners or I were very, very relieved and very grateful that the juries in all these jurisdictions did the right thing.
Andrew Urdiales is finally on death row in San Quentin prison.
Based on reports, approximately 3 weeks after his death sentence in California, he committed suicide.
November 2nd, 2018, 11:15 p.m. Andrew Urdiales commits suicide by hanging in his cell. He is 54 years old.